Hey guys, Tom once again for another episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. So let me just start off by saying it was hot as Hades in the shop today. It's 105 earlier. Let's see, it might have dropped down a little bit since then. Yeah, it's like a mere 104 now in here. It's hot. And I'm drinking a lot of ice water, and what are you going to do? Anyway, enough of that. So today, again, focused on the buggy chassis and got its controls done and or mocked up, basically. So let's talk about those things. So the first thing I did was I mentioned yesterday these cutting brakes that go with the emergency brake. And this piece right here, those of you might remember, I mentioned it was actually broken off of the handle. I didn't really understand it was supposed to be on there, so this is part of the stock handle, but it was off this particular handle. And until I saw the instructions for how this aftermarket cutting brakes work, I didn't really understand how the thing was even supposed to work. And once the owner sent me some instructions that showed that, I get it now. This part does actually need to be there. And so I welded it on. I basically redid the spot welds, and then I added a couple welds. You can kind of see them there and there just to reinforce it a little bit. But basically the way this thing works is the cables come up through here like normal. They run through this thing, but then instead of the nuts basically being on top of this thing, the cables continue through these pieces here, and then the nuts, go basically here and here. So again, that threaded thing sticking out here and here, here and here with the nuts on them. So the way this thing works is that in use, you pull the emergency brake lever up, like say a few clicks, like maybe enough that the e-brakes are dragging a little bit but not really stopping. And then these levers, because the cables have tension on them, they're actually going to sit pretty much up like that, like right alongside the handle. And so then what happens is when you want to use the cutting brake, say on the left, the one nearest you, you push down on this lever here, and you can see how it's going to pull on that particular cable, right? So again, when you don't do anything, they sit like that. They lay right along the actual e-brake handle, and then you push down on the end here, and that in turn pulls more tension on the cable. And then when you're done, you pretty much just release the e-brake like you normally would during normal driving or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of cool to see how that all was supposed to work, and then weld this thing back up and assemble it. And it's actually a really cool little mechanism. Very clever to make use of the emergency brakes like that. I don't know if this is something that Manx sold or where this actually came from. It might have just been an accessory that some company made. I'll probably actually look into it because it is pretty neat. But nonetheless, I think these were pretty common to use on Manxes and maybe even Baja Bugs back in the day as a cheap way to get cutting or turning brakes on a car for off-road purposes. Anyway, so did that first thing this morning. Pretty happy with that. Touched up the paint where I welded it and stuff like that. And then I moved on to the pedal assembly. So again, parts came back from zinc plating and powder coating and so on. And so I went ahead and assembled it. I got a new roller pedal because the other one had melted when we tried to powder coat it. And then I got this cable I mentioned before, which is already made to length from Washburn's Metals. The only thing with these is because they have this clevis on them, which is kind of long, you do have to cut the throttle cable conduit here a little bit. I think I probably cut about 3/4 of an inch off it so that you have clearance for this end of this cable here to come back. But anyway, yeah, that went in, operating nice and smooth. Brake pedal is in and adjusted, got the correct amount of free play here, which is about 1 to 2 millimeters. Clutch seems to be working pretty nice. I just threw a nut on it so that it didn't come detached. Those of you that have ever done one of these before know that if you're not careful, the end of the clutch cable can actually fall off the little hook on the clutch pedal itself, or the shaft of the clutch pedal. So best idea once you get it hooked up is to, even if you're not ready to put a throwout bearing and stuff on there, is put something on to hold a little bit of tension on this side so that you don't lose that connection up there, because if you do, the whole pedal assembly's got to come out, which is a little bit of a pain in the ass. But anyway, so yeah, pedal assembly went in, and I got the correct hardware and put in for good the master cylinder. Again, this was just kind of bolted up before temporarily so I could route and attach the lines. I got these little collars also from Brian Washburn. This looks like a washer, but this is actually the little sleeve that runs through the bulkhead here, and he makes some that have a collar on them. You can actually weld these directly to the pan, or just use them like I did, where it just kind of butts up against the chassis here. So nice little touch there. The nice thing about these is because they have a collar on them, if you pull the master cylinder for some reason down the road, they won't fall into the space here. Anybody that's worked on a lot of Volkswagens will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's pretty common for these sleeves that don't have a collar on, which is how they were stock, to actually just fall down in there. Sometimes you can fish them out with a magnet, but anyway, so these ones Brian makes are really cool, and they will never do that. So did those things, and then kind of started playing around with the shifter setup on here. He did have an old school quick shift, which is made by Impy, and you can see Impy nicely cast into the base of this thing here. And so yeah, I kind of started playing around with that, and it's actually, I have to say, this original one, which is probably from, I don't know, the 60s, maybe 70s, maybe 80s, I don't know, it's definitely an older one. But I've tried a newer one recently, and it was not usable. I couldn't even get it to work. And the issue with the newer one was, or one of the issues at least, was that this new little round part here was very loose on the shaft of the gear shift lever, and so it was, the whole thing just had so much slop in it, totally unusable, couldn't get it adjusted. This one feels really nice. I don't have it quite hooked up all the way yet because I'm having to go and adjust the length of the shift rod here. But yeah, this old school original Impy short shift feels like it's going to be really nice. And I mean, it was used on the car for many years, so I have no doubt that it works well, or they probably would have taken it off. But yeah, I got a little bit more adjustment to do back here, and then I'm putting a solid coupler on it. Again, these are the ones I get from Dave Griner at Proformance. These things are bitchin' and will never break or wear out, so buy it once and be done with it. And yeah, again, shift rod has a little bit of adjustment on it here, so get that all dialed in. And so that's it for the buggy for today. Pretty good progress here, getting the controls and stuff worked out. I did get a little bit more stuff back from powder coating, like the pitman arm, front drums are back, and I got those machined. They needed to be machined a little bit. And let's see what else came in. These little rear bumper cage mounts that I cleaned up, I got those powder coated. I feel like there might have been something else. Anyway, those are kind of the main things. So I think my zinc plating for the front of this car is going to be done tomorrow, and that will then allow me to pretty much take most of what's here and assemble the front of this car. So that'll be a pretty good day if that zinc plating's done. Because after I assemble the front suspension and brakes here, then honestly, this chassis is fairly done, except for putting some shocks on it and a few other little things like that. So yeah, kind of excited to wrap this chassis up, and then it can just sit here patiently and wait for its beautiful refreshed body to come. So Mr. Jacob did come in today for a little while, and set him to work wiring his the 56 oval here, and he made a little progress. Had him go ahead and start connecting the ignition switch. You can see there. So this is the main wiring harness that comes from the back of the car there. So hooked up to the ignition switch, and then you can see it runs over here, hooks up to the fuse box and the speedometer and a few other things. So yeah, I'm just having him go ahead and start working his way through, and you know, kind of showed him how we adjust the lengths of wires and stuff to make him look nice. So yeah, I have no doubt he'll do a great job, and there you go. So that is it for today, guys, and thanks for watching, and we will see you again tomorrow. Bye.